Good afternoon. My name is Mick McAndrews. I'm thrilled to be here to offer a live demo on the Plein Easton stage in support of the 20th anniversary of Plein Easton. For those of you who can't see, there's literally a sea of people out here watching this demo. So I am so nervous. I have never painted in front of such a large group. This is very casual from my perspective. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them. I will try and explain everything I'm doing and why. Because, in case you didn't notice, it's a little hot outside. I've decided to paint something maybe a little bit on the cooler or more refreshing side. So I'm taking us out of Talbot County. Please forgive me. And I'm going to paint a scene from the Pacific Northwest. That's Mount Rainier. If you've been out to Seattle and surrounding area, it dominates the skyline. So I want to try and capture the grandeur of the mountain. And then that's the city of Tacoma off there on the right, which is dwarfed by the mountain. And then harbor scene, a couple of boats, a nice large cargo ship heading off there on the left. So just an interesting composition, I think, kind of a triangle form, the mountain, the city, the boat, and just keep it nice, simple, fresh, spontaneous, just like watercolor should be. And we should definitely have fun, because when we're having fun, I think that shows in our paintings. So no stress, no fuss, no muss, just nice, relaxed watercolor painting. The best way to do a watercolor painting, in my view, is with lots of water and lots of pigment. So we'll really maximize both of those. This is my plein air setup that I have up here. It's new for 2024. I'm trying something different. I think I like it. So far, so good. This is actually an oil painter's palette setup. And I've just kind of modified it, and I use it for watercolor. And so far, it's working out really well. So let's have some fun. Any questions before we begin? Yes.
How long have you been doing this?
Painting, 25-ish years, a long time.
That's a long time, yeah.
Yeah, 10,000 plus hours. Are you an aspiring watercolor painter?
I personally don't have the patience for watercolor.
Okay,
But I really like acrylic. I use that a lot.
good.
Oil sometimes.
Okay.
Primarily.
Yeah, I don't think there's any difference. It takes a long time and a lot of practice to become confident and competent in any painting medium. Okay, thanks for that question. If there are other questions, again, feel free to ask.
What are you painting on and how does it compare?
The question is, what am I painting on? This is watercolor paper. This is actually relatively new for me. It's Bao Hong, a Chinese manufacturer. Cold press watercolor paper. I think I like it. And why I like it is it comes in half sheet sizes. So instead of having to cut the paper up, you just pull it out of the bag and tape it to your board. We'll see how it behaves today. And then I have 20-some colors in my palette, way more colors than anybody needs, because we know that there are really only 3 colors, maybe 5. But I'm just as tempted as anyone else by all the wonderful colors that all of the wonderful paint manufacturers offer to us. So I have way more than I need, but we'll try and use as many as we think we need for today's painting. I want to have dramatic sunlight striking the mountain as it is in that photograph. I want to try and capture some of that light effect in the city, on the buildings in the city, and then in the harbor area. If I try to paint all of that literally, I will fail miserably. But we can create the impression of all that excitement and all that detail, I think, pretty simply and comfortably by using rough or dry brush texture brush marks. So let's get to it. For the sky, I don't want to get all complicated and just paint that rather flat wash. I'd rather do something a little more entertaining. So maybe we'll wet the sky first, and then see what kind of colors we can drop in and let the watercolor do the work for us. Let the watercolor do the work for us. Right? The smart watercolor painter lets the pigment and the water do the work for them, because watercolor doesn't behave. You start adding pigment to water, and it has a mind of its own, and it's going to go and do all sorts of things that I couldn't possibly predict. I've thought about this painting, I've looked at the photo, I've planned it out in my mind so I know what I want to happen. But once I start applying pigment to paper, watercolor is pretty much going to do whatever the heck it wants. And I have to be willing to accept that and to partner with the medium. Happy accidents, they're called sometimes. They happen all the time in watercolor. And oftentimes, they're the most interesting areas of a painting, I think. So I don't want to prevent them. I want to embrace them. Let the accidents and the magic of the medium occur. I have a lot of air blowing on me, so I want to try and paint as quickly as I can because the paper is drying at a rapid pace. Okay, I put a lot of water on. Now we'll turn it back right side up. What I'd like to try and do is get a nice bead of water along the top edge of the mountain so that when I start putting the mountain in, literally trying to paint the mountain, I can get some of the sky to bleed down into the mountain and create not just a mountain shape, but kind of a combined mountain and sky shape, which would be nice. Sky mountain, as opposed to just a plain old mountain. Okay, let's mix something gray. If you're interested in colors, tough luck. A couple of blues, a little bit of green, a little bit of something brown. Just something, an interesting gray, and then just put it in. Let the watercolor do the work for me. Let the watercolor do the work for me. Work for me. You work for me. You work for me. I think the sunlight's going to be coming from this side, so maybe it should be a little darker over here. Some of those white areas that we have might just be clouds, very unlike that photograph, but that's okay. I'm not trying to paint that photograph. I'm trying to paint a work of art, a painting. It's very different from a photograph. What's the old saying? If you want a photo, call a photographer. If you want a painting, you call an artist, and that's a lot of truth. Okay, now while that hopefully is still wet along the edge, I want to grab my 1-inch flat brush and mix up some more of that same color, maybe a little bit richer. That's some blue and a little bit of turquoise. A little bit of turquoise. I just grabbed about $5 worth. A little bit of something red or brown, a little purpley gray. And with my 1-inch flat brush fully charged, I want to make quick brush strokes to suggest that nice glaciated surface of the mountain. I got one chance to get this right, so I better do a good job, especially with the mass of people that are here watching. Okay, there's some mountain, and there's some mountain, and I'm bringing that sky right down into the mountain with those beads of water. Nice. Luck of being in Easton, getting close to those buildings. I need to control my excitement and enthusiasm. Control yourself. Okay, not looking at that photograph. I'm not trying to paint that photograph. I'm trying to create a unique painting using that photograph as inspiration. I'm inspired by that photograph, but I'm not trying to copy it. Okay, and now while that's still wet, I want to soften this area down here with my misting spray bottle so we can give the impression maybe of the mountain emerging out of the mist. Okay, and maybe I want to take a little bit of this remaining gray and drop it in here and there and let it run around and create some interesting, exciting watercolor effects. Just like that. I must be living right. This is doing exactly what we want. Okay, so far so good. there's Mount Rainier, I think. Do you believe me? Please believe me. Okay. Then I want to take, let's see, my brush doesn't matter, but I'll take you, and I want to mix up a little bit of that same, holy moly, I must have not cleaned my brushes last time I used them. Something, that same kind of gray, but maybe darker. Darker, so same colors, a couple of blues, a little bit of turquoise, a little bit of something red-brown, darker. I'm saying darker, I'm not getting it darker. It's hard to do in watercolor. It's hard to get dark, rich pigments. Got a lot of water going on. I got water in the brush, I got water on the paper, got water in the pigments, a lot of water. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Looks like that. It's already drying out. I've got to try and keep those edges soft if I can. Okay, and all I want to try and do is create the illusion of, as the mountain gets closer to me, the foothills are showing up. Here are the foothills to Mount Rainier. Right here, just like that. Okay, keep doing more of that, more of the same, please. That's working out beautifully. Got to talk positive to myself. Negative self-talk never works. Be kind to yourself. Maybe I'll take a little bit of water on my brush and just drop that in. Why? Because I know that watercolor is my friend. And if I use it to my advantage, it always does good stuff. So I'll give it a chance. I don't want to do all that work. Let watercolor do the work.
Turn your body a little bit out. There you go. So that perfect. Moved over just a little bit. So you can get the whole
As if this isn't difficult enough. Oh my goodness me. You're killing me here. Okay, I went right back to my other position, didn't I? You're right, I did. Okay, keep going. Now as I'm getting closer still, maybe this becomes more green because I'm starting to see the color of the trees, the foothills, as they get closer to me. So let's try a little bit of that. How dark is that? It's really dark. Okay, I want to try and get this again while it's wet, but here we are getting closer still with something. There's the distant foothills. Now we're getting a little closer with this warmer green color, right down to the tops of these buildings. So I got to start cutting in. Ugh. Cutting in. It's so much more fun to paint loose and free like this than it is to come down and have to cut around these buildings. Oh well, this is my fate. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Yep, that's exactly what we want. Again, positive self-talk. Positive self-talk. You're doing great. Everyone is loving this. Uh-oh, I'm doing it again. There I am. Ugh. Okay, buildings, buildings, buildings. Make them look like buildings. You're a building, and you're a building. Come over here. You're a building. Oh my goodness, who thought to put all these buildings in? I must have been feeling very full of myself when I did this sketch. You can do these 32 buildings. Okay, but I think I see a skyline emerging, and that's the key. Looks like the skyline of Tacoma, or any city you choose. You choose the city, and we'll make that happen. Okay, here we are. Okay. So far, a better view? Okay. And how long did it take us to do all that painting? We've painted almost 2/3 of this painting in probably 10 minutes. Okay, now I got to put in this harbor down here. And I talked about putting it in without having to actually put in all the detail that's in that photograph. Let's see if we can pull that off. A little bit of brown, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of you, this and that and this and that. What I want to try and do is just get some dry brush or rough texture which will suggest all of that detail in the background, and I won't have to paint it literally, like that. There's that whole harbor coming to life right there, and that. What's all that stuff? I don't know. I'll let you figure that out, because you're the viewer. What is all that stuff? It's all the Tacoma Harbor stuff. Cranes and lifts and boats and dock houses and. It's all that stuff and more. Okay, some more of that stuff. Those are a couple of boats there. They might have some important purpose, so I'll try not to cover them up too much. All the way over to here. This is impressionistic style painting, saying a lot without having to say anything specifically. If I'm painting a farm scene, I would call these kind of brush marks barn stuff. If I'm painting a landscape, it's flotsam and jetsam. Since this is a cityscape and a shipyard, it's boat stuff. But it's all the same. Don't tell anybody I said that. You saw how simple that was, right? Okay, here we go. Now we have the city. City has a lot of stuff. There's roads and houses and parks and overpasses, people and cars. How do I capture all of that? I know. Dry brush texture brush marks. It worked here. It will definitely work in the cityscape. Let's find out. Okay, maybe we take, what's a good brush? Take a brush we can afford to mash up a little bit. Out in the Pacific Northwest, it's green because they get a lot of rain. So we need to paint something that leans on green and leaves a lot of unpainted white area. Okay, Tacoma, what do you look like? Good start. Good. I want to leave a lot of white unpainted because that's what helps me tell that story. I think I want it to be darker than all of this. So those buildings, once we get to them, will really pop out. Yep, that's Tacoma, all right. Never been there, but that's got to be what it looks like. Okay, some more of that, this and that. Are you having as much fun as I am? Are you just saying that? Okay. In case you missed it, that gentleman said this is great. Not good. He said it was great. Okay, keep going. That's a little too blue, I think. We need a little more green in there. Okay, keep going. Some of this, some of that. Coming down toward the shoreline. And maybe we need to do something like we did. Oh, I have this spray bottle. There's a misting spray bottle and just a droplet spray bottle. I'll spray some of that in. See what that does. I didn't have to paint any of it. Okay, now let's take this different brush, grab some more of that stuff, and a little bit of that stuff. And what I want to do is do a shoreline kind of a thing. Same idea as over here. And there's the beginning of the harbor. First real detail I put in since I started, down there. Make a couple of marks that might look like roadways or where recreational boats would be sitting, some of that. And then maybe this is a good time to go in and actually put in the water. Water. Blue, I'm using a lot of the same colors. Blue and a little bit of green and a little bit of that brown. I'm right in the way again, aren't I? How does anyone step over here and paint? How does anyone do that? Something. Okay, so what I'd like to do is try and catch some sparkle in the water. And the way I do that is I make fast brush strokes so I get, again, some rough texture brush marks. Same thing as we were doing before, like that. That says bright, sunny day. Bright, sunny day. La-di-da-dee-dee, la-di-da-dee-dee-dee. Okay. Right over that boat, because it's going to be darker, and I know that. Okay, that's a lot of white unpainted area in this water. I can leave it white for now because I'm smart enough to know that if it's too light later, I can always come back in and cover that white up. But now's the only time when I can leave it white. And the only source of light that I have in a watercolor painting is the white of the paper. I don't have white paint pretty much as oil painters do. I have to rely on the white of the paper to be my source of light. So I have to be very careful and very thoughtful about when I cover it up. All this light, be very careful when considering covering it up. That's where the light comes from. Maybe those marks right here are a reflection of the mountain. I don't know. I know. I'll let the viewer decide. The viewer will know. They're smarter than I am. Okay. A little bit darker maybe at the bottom of the picture plane because I want the painting to feel anchored at the bottom. So maybe we just make this area down here a little darker down here. Don't take away your source of light. Be careful. Careful. Don't get overzealous. You're doing good. Don't screw it up now. Okay, good. Okay. So far, we're doing okay, right? Okay. We're ripping our way through this. Jeez. I need to slow down. Okay, maybe, interesting. Interesting. We have those really bright buildings. They're almost making me squint. They're so bright. We're going to cool them down a little bit. But perhaps I take a little bit of something really light, like this kind of warm white pigment back here. And while the water is still wet, maybe I suggest some of the reflection of those buildings in the water. We're just trying stuff. We're not going to go to jail if it doesn't work. This is painting. Not brain surgery, just painting. If you paint, you know that failure is a huge part of the learning process. So don't be afraid to fail. That's how we become better painters. And then maybe, let's see, think about this. Maybe we drop some water in here and see what that'll do. Oh boy. Now we're getting crazy. Really having fun. Any questions about what we've done so far and why? Was that a yep, I have questions, or a? Okay. We still friends? Okay. Good. Okay. Yeah, that's good for now. Okay. Now, maybe we dive right into those buildings and put in something nice and gray. If the sunlight's coming from this direction, this side of the buildings will be sunlit, and there's a side facing away from the sunlight. So the same gray I used in the water, in the foothills, in the mountain, in the sky, I'll put in there, but I'll just make it a darker value. Value being the relative lightness and darkness. So it's blue and turquoise and brown. That creates, me using those same colors throughout the painting creates what's called unity. It fits together even better without having all these colors kind of mixed and matched, which tends to cause what I'm going to call confusion in a painting. So whenever possible, keep your palette limited. Okay, that's pretty dark, but I think I could be even darker. That's an awful color, but it's the color I got. Okay, here we go, keep going. Leave a little bit of light on the top of that building where the sunlight would be striking the top of the building, and then on the side of the building facing the light. That really emphasizes our feeling of light now. Now where light's coming from? It's coming from this direction. Okay. When I made those rough texture brush marks, I got this little building back here that I wasn't even counting on. But since you're there, we'll highlight you. Good job. Happy accident. Who knew that was going to happen? Okay, here's this big kind of tall building, and here we go. Okay. Positive self-talk. Okay. Tacoma is coming together. One piece at a time. This building, maybe we'll leave that just white for now. You can always go back and cover it up, but now's the only time I can leave it unpainted, so we'll leave it. There's a building, and there's a building. There's a building. Look at us. Just look at us. What we're doing on this Monday afternoon. We're shaking up the art world. And there's another building, and we'll even put that distant building over here. Okay, so just really quickly, that's a Tacoma skyline, right? No painting should be viewed from 2 inches away like this, because guess what? Not very good. But from 20 feet away, there's Tacoma, right? Am I right? Say no if you disagree. Whew. What's that?
I've never seen it from that angle.
What does that mean?
You can make me believe it.
All right, trust me, but
Are the building shades dark blue? They look blue.
these here,
Yeah.
they're like a gray. It's a combination of colors, but it's a blue gray, a cool gray. Okay, that's a used paper towel. Okay, we can always go back in, and we will, and add more detail into the city, but I like to stop and say, do you really need to? Like, how much more detail do I really need to tell the story I'm trying to tell of the city skyline? And the answer is usually not much more. Don't put in more than you need. Let the viewer's mind's eye fill in all the stuff that you're not telling them. Okay. And there's a lot more we can add down in here. We can add some highlights and things that may look a little bit more like roads and bridges and things, but I love the idea of just letting it be and seeing if what I'm trying to capture, which is the essence of that city skyline, really comes through. We'll put some antennas on the buildings and spires and things that buildings would have, but how little we need to actually tell our story. Okay, so we have the beginning of some boats in here. We have our cargo ship here. All the detail back in here. But I'm just curious. 32 minutes. I have an hour and a half, so somebody better be able to tell some jokes. And it ain't me, because we're zeroing in on done here very quickly. That's one of the things I love about watercolor. It doesn't have to take hours, right, or days to finish a watercolor. You can do a good watercolor in an hour. That's the beauty of it. And my favorite watercolors are ones that are completed in an hour. When you get in, you do the work, and you get out. You've allowed the medium to do the work for you with a little bit of forethought and maybe a little bit of experience, but there's a magic to it, not overworking it. Letting even happy accidents. I have some things happening in here that blooms and blossoms and things that you might panic over. Don't panic. Those things help to tell the story of watercolor. You can't get those kind of things when painting in oil or acrylic or pastel. Those are unique to watercolor, so let them happen. Some of these things happening along here, along the edge of the mountain. It's good stuff. Okay, we have the cabin, or whatever they would call it, on this boat. I want to make that nice and dark so that this side of the boat can be lit up. I have these smaller boats here in the dock. We should try and leave some of that white, but put some of them in shadow. Don't want to labor over it, but there's a boat and there's a boat. Good. Maybe here's a boat. And here's a boat. Okay. Now, would they have reflections in the water? maybe just a little bit. They're far enough away from us that I don't think there'd be much of a reflection. So we can grab that and bring it down a little bit if we want to. But it's not going to be much. Just to kind of, that little bit at the bottom helps to marry the boats to the water. We want to tell the viewer that they are sitting in water and not up on land. We have all of this stuff. Let's put the red of that boat in. Why don't we do that while we're here? Which will be a nice complement to all of this green, red being the complementary color to green, which is why Christmas is so beautiful. All the reds and greens, they're complementary colors. Okay, so what red? Who cares? A little bit of that red, and maybe a little bit of this red, red-brown, and a little bit of real red, serious red, dangerous red. Okay, let's see how that looks. Looks like that. Nice. Almost takes my breath away. Okay, want to make this the shape of that boat. Big, long cargo ship. Some more of that red. It's got a bow on it. Nick Richards is probably cursing me back there because I continue. All right, that's the better answer because I keep stepping right into that camera's eye view. Okay, so down here, just do some of this stuff. Here's the bottom of the boat, and I think there's a very dark line at the bottom of the boat, which is a good thing, because that's going to help me tell that story, even though the viewer would know it, given where it is and the shape that it is. They're going to know that it's sitting in the water, not on the water, but in the water. So I'm going to grab something dark. I don't know what that is. It's neutral tint or something. Just something dark, and go along the bottom of the boat with that. Okay. And then maybe in a minute, we'll go ahead and put a little bit of a reflection in of that boat, not too much. I want to keep this whole painting very simple and uncomplicated, a sophisticated simplicity to it. That's my goal. Okay. There's stuff going on top of that boat. What do you think it is? You've been listening to me yak for 32 minutes. What do you think it is? Boat stuff. It's boat stuff. Your mind's eye will say cargo boxes, whatever everyone just said. I don't need to paint all of that. I just need to suggest it. That's the boat stuff. City stuff, mountain stuff, port, harbor stuff, water stuff, boat stuff. Okay, so just fewer strokes I make in here, the better. With just the least number of strokes, I can suggest all of the stuff that we know would be on the top of a cargo ship. Okay, so easy to do. It's a piece of cake. Okay, then maybe we grab some of this really dark stuff here and put in a couple of windows for the pilots and captain to see out, right back in here. And the immediate question one has to ask is, how much else do I need to do? And the answer is, not much. Not much. I want to maybe set off that cabin a little bit better. So it says cabin and doesn't get lost in what's around it. And bring it down here and do some of that. Right? And if you take a look later, you'll see how little effort I put into trying to make that have any measure of detail. Now maybe we can take just a little bit of this blue-gray stuff and make just the least little bit of a reflection of that boat. Now, it would be a logical enough question to say, well, that boat is red, why wouldn't the reflection be red? It probably is, but I don't need to say that in this painting, I don't think. Okay, a little bit of a trail in the water that says I'm moving, and let that be. I think that's enough. Okay, so we have all this stuff back in here to do. Let's put a little more detail in these boats back here. Some of that kind of stuff. There's one of those. A couple of these, a couple of those. Stuff that every boat should have. We've seen boats and buildings and harbor scenes, especially living in Talbot County, our whole lives. I don't need to tell you all the stuff that goes on. I just need to suggest all that to you and let your mind's eye fill all of that in. Okay. Let's take a minute. Why don't we take maybe this brush. We'll take some more of this warm white stuff and make this shoreline a lot more interesting than it is. And then take our number 2 finger brush and scumble it up some so it's not so defined. Sometimes a brush makes a mark that's too well defined and doesn't really indicate properly what we're trying to say. At least that's my opinion about it. Okay, and maybe some of that. A little more activity there in the foreground. It's a lot of white in the city there. I can always take, we talked about earlier, I can always take and quiet some of that down. Maybe that's too much white space, especially over there in the corner where I don't want you to be paying attention. So I can quiet some of that down. But make that decision once you've left it white initially so you can choose to cover some of that up. Now in these buildings, maybe we take a little bit of that white stuff and we say, we have some, I'm right in front of this, I apologize for that, but we have some antennas and things. Communications. This is what says I'm a building. I'm the tallest building in all of Tacoma. And here's one, and here's one. You've got one, and you've got one. You've got one, and you don't have one because I don't want you to be competing. I said I didn't want to put one in, but I did. Oh well. Okay. We need to fill in some more stuff back here. Maybe we just take, again, some of this warm white stuff and put in whatever would be in a boatyard. Putting in those dots of warm color to complement, I hope, all that white area that we've left unpainted. I'm doing this to make it, I hope, the demo entertaining, but in my heart of hearts, I don't even need to do this sort of stuff because I think the story's being told pretty effectively already. I can quiet some of this if I want to with a little bit of blue-gray, just like we did in the cityscape. I can say, you're a little too confusing. And this painting may be a little schizophrenic. The truth is, where should the viewer be looking? Should I be looking at the city? Should I be looking at the mountain? Should I be looking at the boat? And I guess the answer is yes. Pay attention to all of them. They're all important. And then maybe I take a little bit of red, oh boy, and just a couple of accents of color here and there. Traffic lights, signals, I don't know. It's all that sort of stuff, all that city stuff. Little accents of color. And again, against all that green, that's going to play nicely. And if I have that over there, once I start putting in dots of red like that, I can put in dots of red everywhere. Here in the harbor area, I can put in some, I'm jumping all over the place. I'm having too much fun, I think. I can cover up some of this blue over here maybe. It still shows through, but not quite so loudly because I really don't want you looking way out there. That's the far nether regions of the painting. Pay attention much more so to what's going on over in here. So okay. And then maybe we put a couple of more harbor-like things over here. See, I said that now. I went right over here to the city again. Stick with the program, pal. Okay, like this. Oh, now that would be interesting. Why don't we do that? This cargo ship could have smoke coming out of its chimneys. It's powering out of the harbor, right? That makes good sense to me. Now we're talking. A little bit of that white, soften some of the edges, bring it up into here, like that. Good. That would be nice to do in some of the port areas too. Like in here, maybe there's some activity that's generating some steam or some smoke, I don't know. Nice. Grab some of this and maybe put some antennas on these boats' masts. Boats have masts, buildings, and cars have antennas. Okay, some of that over here. You've got a mast, and you've got a mast, and you've got a mast, and then there's masts of other boats back here that I can't even see. Yep. Oh, I know, there should be some masts even down here where people are parking their million-dollar yachts. Yep. Okay, some more of that. There's a mast, and there's a mast, and there's a mast. Mast. Now I'm making these marks. These marks I'm making here are far from perfect. Matter of fact, some of them are downright awful, but I'm making them with confidence. If I make a mark with confidence, you'll believe me. Don't be tentative. Be confident. Does that make sense? Okay. So maybe you've got one of those too. Up here, you. There's a couple of masts back in here. Maybe here's a crane or something. That'd be good. where they're loading cargo onto ships. Good idea. A crane over here too, yep. That even goes up higher. Okay. And some masts and things here and there. I'm looking for things to do. I'm looking for ways to keep painting, and that's a sure sign of what? That's a sure sign that I'm done, when I'm looking for things to do. When you're done, you're done. So I can always go back in and do more later, but knowing when to stop is also, painting is fun, so it's easy to want to continue painting when the reality is, once the story's told, the story of Mount Rainier and Tacoma and the harbor, there's really nothing else that I need to say. But you help me decide. What do you think?
I think you should just leave it like that.
Smart girl, right there. Yeah. I think we're done. So the final thing to do with a watercolor painting is to peel off the tape. And that kind of creates the little world where this painting actually exists. I'll put it in a frame after we're done, but this is the first step towards really kind of saying I'm a scene unto myself. So thanks for joining me this afternoon. I had fun, and I hope you did too. Oh, I forgot one thing. What did I forget? I forgot to sign it. You're absolutely right. I should do that. Okay. Back to the little brush, and here's a little piece of advice for the painters out there. If you like what you've done, sign your name. If you don't like it, sign somebody else's name. Okay. Thanks for joining me today. I really enjoyed our time together. What a pleasure. Yeah, questions, that'd be great. Thank you.